Hello there, and welcome back to the Highway to the Threemus Zone. We are here with our Restreamer Ground Flyer, our Tracker Pancraz, and my co-commentator Boren Soren to bring you this Magma route match between Poidrac and Zilch, who are both 2-0. What do you think about this matchup, Boren?
I am really excited. These are two great runners. They came just one match short of automatically qualifying for table. Now they're both looking at potentially 3-0ing their way through the magma route.
We see some objectives here today. We had some joke ones put in, but we will get to the right ones. But we do have Rescue the Hostage on Mount Hobbs, Cure the Fever with the Sand Ruby, and Liberate Baron Castle. All overworld objectives. This can be quite a conundrum for our runners if they find some of these items early.
Yeah, this is one of those flag sets where, it could go very fast if the required key items are readily available. If we start having to go hunting around deep in the lunar subterrane, this really could drag out. But, whenever you see a bunch of overworld objectives, as a runner, your mind starts to go to, how quickly am I going to have to be ready for Z?
Yeah, and at that point, you're basically looking for in these flags. We're kind of limited which ways you can grind, especially if you never go underground. Sirens are not really available in overworld shops. So if you end up not going underground, you're definitely not going to find them. You're going to have to do your grinding another way, and that's why Tella has gained a lot of significance for this tournament.
Atella is definitely a character you learn to love as you're playing Free Enterprise. The spells he starts with, just having access to that exit spell and blink, really provides a ton of utility early game, and all you have to do is complete Mount Ordeals, and you unlock a nearly complete white and black magic spell suite that really makes him kind of the magical Swiss Army knife that a lot of parties really need.
Yeah, so we'll have to see what the second character is given. There are, of course, free characters on for this group stage, so our players will be able to fill out their parties quite quickly and start to kind of think about what final party they want to have. We have seen a lot of players just deal with whatever characters they get on the overworld and go for it rather than waiting to see if they get a character they like better later. We are having a Dark Knight Cecil start, so basically, a lot of our decision making, our players are going to go through, has to do with if they have holy swords for their future paladin Cecil. If they don't, by the time they have to drop a character, you may see them drop these Dark Knight Cecils because without holy swords, Cecil is somewhat of a, I won't say a roadblock, but definitely a liability in this flag set with vanilla agility on.
Yeah, as a community, we decided it's a little bit too easy on the runners when you can go ahead and have Cecil with one of the two best weapons in the game being uh, at relative agility 1. So we decided, well, let's go ahead and make things a little challenging on the runners if they keep Cecil.
Oh my goodness, this is the unpower start. Dark Knight Cecil Edwards starts with a no key item from the free item. We do have Dark Knight Cecil the boss in Baron Castle, which is meaning we're going to have to find him if that's one of the objectives that we end up doing. So this is a. What do you think with this amount of power levels starting out with?
I'm not happy right now. One of the nice things about this flag set is our runners will be able to run off and immediately start looking for new characters. But if I saw DKC and Eddie to start, I'd be thinking, gee, I really hope I can find somebody a little bit more useful in some of these early checks.
Yeah, there's no level of equipment that can be found right now that would basically make Dark Knight Cecil or Edward super useful unless we get like an early spoon at one of these early key item spots. That'd be great. We find another Dark Knight Cecil in the waterway. That's actually pretty nice because you can use one Cecil to be your agility anchor and use the other one to actually deal damage. It'll only be your Cecil in your top party spot, um, which is the middle slot usually, and then your other Cecil can be unfettered basically.
Oh, and Zilch is rewarded for going to Mysidia as we see an edge sighting and the third Cecil of the seed.
Very happy to see the edge at this point, I think, if you're one of these players. That's basically assuring that you're going to be able to get some early key item checks out of the way without having to really struggle. Finding 3 Cecils in the seed, very interesting. We'll have to see if that kind of guides our players into doing a little bit more looting than they normally would.
And T Wildish is on, so it's very possible to find some upper tier loot in some of these more out of the way gated locations. So it's not impossible that you check a gated location and find yourself a lightsaber or even an Excalibur or crystal sword if it's a trap chest.
And we see Zilch wasting no time, going straight to Castle Eblin to do some extra looting. Gonna find those trap chests you're talking about.
It doesn't look like he's interested in taking them on right now, but he might be kind of gambling on, the gear in this area is going to be weighted to be much higher tier. So if I can, pick my way around those 3 trap chests, I can, get my looting jump started and get some really nice equipment for the early game. And speaking of, he finds a power shirt and an Aegis shield, which are tremendous items to have early in the game.
Yeah, and we can definitely say, as we predicted, these players with this kind of weaker start are looting a little bit more. We see Poidrac doing the full waterway clear, which, considering no exits, is a pretty time-consuming. So you can see we're pretty treasure-starved. They're interested in spending some time here and investing, hoping that they pay off.
And I'm not sure I saw anything really tremendously exciting in Poidrac's treasure loop. I think Chad is mentioning he found a Leviathan summon, which is nice to have, but given that we haven't seen Iridia yet, might wind up just being some money.
Yeah, and I can't say that money is unwelcome in these seeds either, because you'll see players continue to loot because we're looking for some pretty expensive items if we can find them in shops. Cure 3s, hourglasses, sirens, and Bacchus wines, to name a few. So it's money is not something you can disregard or not think about. You can't afford to see a sack of sirens and not be able to get them.
And both runners are being very aggressive with their looting. It looks like Zilch has taken the time to locate all of the trap chests and then is going to fully loot Castle Eblon.
We see some Soma drops in the Kaipo shop. I can definitely see our runners coming back for this once they get a mage later. We have seen many players actually spending the time and money to buy Soma drops in the seed for their Tella in order to get one more week out of his MP pool.
And Tella does start with 90 MP and unfortunately never gains any additional NP. So when you've got a spell like Weak, which is so tremendously important to some of our grind options that cost 25 MP, that extra 10 really makes a big difference in terms of efficiency in your grind.
That's right. Poidrac finding Cure 3s here in Agard. That's going to be important if they don't find a White Mage character. Meanwhile, Zilch did pay off in Castle Eblin, managed to get Murasame, for his edge, and that's gonna basically, I don't want to speak too soon, but full clearing overworld is pretty possible just with the edge alone.
I believe he did also find another power shirt, so that edge is really going to be dishing out some great damage.
Meanwhile, our players are kind of going over each other's steps here. Poidrac going to Mysidia, about to find the other Dark Knight Cecil and the edge. And Zilch is doing the checks in Kaipo that Poidrac just got finished with.
And if I'm in Poidrac's shoes, I'm a little both relieved to have found Edge as a better damage source, especially early in the game, but also I'm maybe at least a little bit worried because there was a fast start readily available to you if you had just gone to Mysidia and grabbed your Edge. And he did wind up spending a lot of time going through and doing that full loop through Watery Pass without an exit. which, you know, we can ask him later, but maybe that's not something he would have done if he had access to Edge right out of the gate.
And looks like we are going to get our first key item check here. Zilch looks to be heading to Antlion Cave.
It's a good early play to make. One of the easier boss spots in the game. If you're not happy with the loot you've gotten so far, there's plenty of readily available checks for you to pick up on your way down. And generally, nothing that you find here is going to be too challenging.
Yeah, we can see Zilch is not interested in this treasure at all. Usually you would see our players loot this out. It's a pretty treasure-dense dungeon, but has found enough that he does not want to spend time on it. We will see him loot later when we get to some heavier weighted chests, but Antlion Cave not worth it for him any longer. CPU, very nice to see here. Gonna go down pretty quickly.
That is another fight that I'm really happy to see early, because it can be really obnoxious in some later game spots.
Yeah, because it, like a couple of other enemies in the game, it deals only like HP-based damage. As long as you have a source of healing, it's not super dangerous, but it can be extremely time-consuming, as you said, in those later game spots. Meanwhile, Poidrac is caught up in the same battle, so well, we will be going to see what these players do after they get the key item here.
And Poidrac reminding us that DKC is not a great damage source in the early game. We've got a Magma key, so immediate underground access.
Ooh, this changes a lot. At this point, that means that all of the heavier weighted shops in the underground are available to our players, so they will be able to find, perhaps, items like Bacchus Wine, Hourglass, and the almighty Sirens. And they will also be able to do a couple of free key item checks that are down there, and the double whammy of Dwarf Castle if they think their party has the power.
Well, the issue they have with that is that right now they do not have a source of the warp spell, which would take that Dwarf Castle double whammy check off the table. They still have some character checks to make, so maybe we'll see that source of black magic. But as of yet, they might be looking at the dreaded sealed cavern clear.
And we do have a white mage finally here in Rosa. I can bet that Poidrac, if he finds her, will also be taking her, as Zilch has. And yeah, this will be nice. You already know you have a good physical attacker in Edge. You already know you have a white mage in Rosa. That means you're at least set. If you get nothing else, you can get through a lot of the overworld and even some of the underworld spots with just those two things.
I'm very happy if I have this party. Just a high-level Cecil, a high-level Edge, and a high-level Rosa can pretty much take care of Z all by themselves. In the game, knowing you have underground access. And an Hourglass too, out of a treasure chest there on the east side of Hobbs. So another thing that might open up a free boss check, or maybe a higher level grind option once Zilch gets underground.
Yeah, and it's pretty nice that our players get Valvalis out of the way at such an easy boss spot as well. They've got to be happy about that one.
It is another one you really hate to see at higher level locations, so you know, whenever you can get it out of the way, you feel pretty happy about that.
Yeah, and we do always say check your objectives, so both players now have objective 2, and it pays off because they get that early Rosa. If you hadn't checked that and just thought, oh, I'll do it later when my party's stronger and I'll be faster, you'd be missing out on that sweet EXP for Rosa for all these other checks.
Yeah, and it is a little bit of debate with the free characters on. If Hobbs isn't required, there's a real question as to whether or not there is value in checking the character on Hobbs. But you get some information about what potential boss might be out of the pool. It might be a character you're really looking for, so it's a play that I know some runners like to take.
Now we have Zilch going up Ordeals, whereas Poidrac is going to show us Fabul. We do see Maga Sisters in Fabul and Yang on Mount Ordeals. Nice matchup here.
Yang is probably not who the runners will be looking for, since they still do not yet have a source of black magic. And I don't think either of them have checked Baron in, but that's our only open character check left, unless I've missed one.
I think you're right. We are going to get Ashura in the first boss spot on Ordeals. Shouldn't be too spicy, but we don't have a way to get... I do see 2 Star Veils in Zilch's inventory, so if he wants to, he can use both of those to prevent her healing, but we'll see if he feels like it's worth it to spend them in this spot.
I wouldn't be surprised if he just tries to power through this. He's got the DPS with that edge. You can just kind of hold A and bonk your way through.
Meanwhile, we do get the Earth Crystal out of Fabul. I don't know if Poidrac is going to be willing to dive that yet, but it at least will get him access to the armory, which is all important. So chat, get ready to rate that armory.
That is one of my favorite games to play because I really love opening higher tier treasure chests. That room has some of the highest probability of upper tier gear in the game, and when you've got a Cecil itching for a holy sword, that is a great place to check.
Yeah, and who knows, if Poidrac wants a black mage enough, he may decide that it's worth fighting the 2 bosses in the tower in order to see if he can grab one from the 2 character spots there.
And it looks like we've got D Lunars in the back attack spot in Ordeals. This is another boss that I'm pretty happy to have out of the pool early. It's not a spot he's really going to have any problems with. Because these two can really be rude at some higher level locations.
Yeah, luckily the one spell that Edge starts with is the Flame spell, so we'll be able to just power through that using this as long as his Edge doesn't go down. And as we were talking about there, Poidrac wasting no time, gonna go check out the town of Troy, and then for sure we'll be checking that treasury right afterwards.
And he does find a cursed ring, which is really good to see. If you're going to be toting a Paladin Cecil around as your anchor, he does start with relatively high agility. So it's anything you can do to kind of reduce that and make sure you have your agility set up the way you want it is welcome. Although I didn't see if he actually bought it. I think he sold a few things, and I'm not sure if I caught him go back and... Oh, and Ordeals is potentially required as we get the Baron key out of Ordeals.
This is starting to look better and better for our runners. They already have basically 2 objectives available to get out of the way. All they need is a Sand Ruby and a way to get to Zeromus and a way to get levels, and they'll be ready to go. It's tantalizing.
And we see Kainatsu, another boss you're very happy to see out of the pool this early in the game.
Yeah, you don't want to see a Kanazo at a high HP spot and have to rely on being outspeeding him and getting rid of his waves. We get another Power Shirt, Defense Sword, Protect Ring, Coffin, Crystal Armor, Stardust Rod, Sorcerer Robe, Samurai Bow. That's a pretty good one.
That is a pretty good one, but if I'm looking at having one or more Cecils in my party, I kind of want better than the Defense Sword. I'm not upset about all that really high gear defensive mage gear, because you've got Rosa, you've got a good stat stick for her, you've got good armor and a good ring. She's going to be able to take even unnerfed big bangs without you really having to worry about it.
Zilch is stopping off in Mysidia. We'll see, he wants to visit the weapon shop here and selling off some inventory items. We'll see what he's trying to buy.
Looks like he was really interested in being able to pick up that dwarf axe. I'm not sure that it was necessarily for back rowing his Cecil, since he did have a bow and arrow from Rosa. I think he's more interested in it because it gives the -5 to agility, which is really useful if you're trying to manipulate your agility.
Now, at this point, if I'm Poidrac, I'm thinking maybe I need to get ordeals out of the way to stop these Dark Knight Cecils from weighing me down.
And I don't believe either of her runners have checked Baron in yet, or did I miss that? Because I think that's the only character check that we really have open, since I can't imagine anybody's going to want to dive Zot anytime soon.
Ooh, Zilch is actually checking the Baron weapon shop, where we do find lightsabers, so we'll at least be able to have one Holy Sword available for Cecil.
That is a lot of money, but given that they haven't really seen anything better so far, I would not be surprised to see one of our runners try to go back and pick one of those up.
Yeah, Poidrac here is similarly probably not going to have any troubles with these three bosses. We do find Evil Wall and Iridia, so there's a Black Mage. She doesn't learn spells as fast as Palom, but she'll still get them. So could be being picked up here. We'll see. I'm willing to bet we'll see Edward ditch to pick up Iridia.
Well, very importantly, one spell that Iridia does learn very early is the Warp spell. Palom, I believe, doesn't learn it into level 29, whereas Iridia should get Warp in the first batch of levels you get her. And as Chad is pointing out, the Treasury did have a Sorcerer Robe and a Stardust Rod that'll look very, very good on that Iridia.
Yeah, Pale Dim is not too bad of a boss to find here either. Out of the moon bosses, it and Plague are pretty much the ones that are the least dangerous. So to find it here in Baron Inn is pretty good. Not as good as finding, other moon bosses like D-Lunars or Ogopogo at early spots, but still pretty decent. You want to get Moon Sparkles out of the way anytime you can.
Oh, absolutely. And that spot does hit very hard, but given that you have a back row edge, you're not too worried about anything that would pop up. And a pass, so this is potentially looking to be a very fast seed.
All objectives on the overworld, pass available on the overworld. If there's a Sand Ruby on the overworld, I don't even know. They'll have to get levels somehow.
Yeah, and one thing that Edge really does offer you is the ability to steal sirens. Since they do have the Magma key, they have immediate underground access. You don't have to worry about, financing that shopping trip. You can just go down and buy them. Um, so if it comes down to it, where Zilch is in go mode after completing this next objective, it might be time for either some low-level strats, or we might be seeing a very fast grind underground to get through the next batch of the seed.
Yeah, neither of our players, or at least we haven't ditched Edward yet, and low-level Zeromus is one of the reasons to keep him around.
I think Zilch did keep him, but yes, okay, never mind. Yes, they both have kept him. Notably, Zilch let go of one of his Cecils to make sure he could keep Eddie around. Because we might have a sub 40-minute time here if we get Sand Ruby out of Baron Castle.
Yeah, that would be wild, especially since beating Zeromus using Edward strats is a very niche strategy and takes a lot of really precise execution to perform.
And I had to correct myself because I said sub 40 minutes, and then I remembered that a Eddie Strats Z fight will take about 17 minutes by itself. So not quite for the faint of heart, but it would be a great way for us to show off, the talent of these runners, and also, what this randomizer really enables you to do once you get to start, sequence breaking and playing the game the way the developers really never intended you to.
And we'll see if Poidrac goes to Baron in after this, and then we're seeing Zilch getting through, hearing the Pain Manifesto, and then we'll see who is sitting on the throne of Baron as well.
And I think some of Zilch's, I'd be curious to ask him later, but it wouldn't surprise me if some of Zilch's more aggressive looting here has to do with the fact that he's thinking, like, how am I going to be able to finance the 30 or so Star Veils I'm going to need if I'm going to take a solo Eddie to Z?
Yeah, it's not messing around here for sure. We do have a lot of good weaponry for Edge, so he's going to continue to be a good damage dealer up until we don't need him anymore, but...
And it's a pretty free fight here at the Baron Throne. Zilch should have the damage just through Edge alone to be able to finish off this Bahamut before he mega nukes, and there he goes. But even if he didn't, we get those Star Veils through the starter kit. So this was a free fight either way. So here is the ultimate moment of truth. Are we going to be done in the next 20 minutes or so, or are we going to be in this for the long haul?
And we see Zilch ditching another Cecil in order to pick up a Mage.
Again, it wouldn't surprise me if that was just to make it easier to manipulate agility. The kids tend to have lower stats to begin with, even compared to the base level Paladin Cecil, and you don't really need to worry about doing too much to make them slow enough that you can have control over your Z fight.
And we find a Luca key, the orphan key item of this tournament. We will not be using that unless we somehow need a Mist Dragon that's in the boss spot in Sealed Cave.
Or if we're, just hoping for that 10th key item for our grind efficiency. But yes, unfortunately, it looks like we're going to be playing for more than 45, 50 minutes tonight. And looks like we found bonus rounds, so we really absolutely will not be needing that Luca key tonight.
That's a nice find for sure, especially since it's natural to check this boss after you complete Baron, and since Baron is one of the objectives, we know both players are going to be funneled into this.
And that's great info to have, because the deeper you get into a seed without seeing that demist, your mind starts going to, did I fade a check where it could have been? Is that what's blocking off the progress I need to make? So just having that info and knowing, okay, if I'm wanting to avoid doing a longer check, I know where I can go and fight my demist, get another free item check, and not have to worry about doing something like Zot or Twin.
Yeah, and we can see Zilch has exhausted the overworld possibilities and is now about to head underground. And I can expect we'll see some shop checks, first of all, just to see if there's any of those good utility items available down there.
And I'm interested to see how aggressively he does shop, because he has spent a good amount of time looting higher tier areas and has gotten some pretty good gear out of it. But given that he's gotten rid of both of his Cecils, I think he has a spare. Power shirt he might be interested in selling, which could really go a long way in financing sirens, Bacchus wines, anything else in the underground you might want to buy.
Yeah, and I mean this is basically Zilch kind of saying, "Hey, if I get the Sand Ruby early, I'll be ready. But if I don't, then I need to be ready to clear a lot of the seed in order to find it."
And just a good spear in the free item chest. But again, if you're looking to do some shopping, that's a great way to be able to afford some of those higher tier J items you can find underground.
And Poidrac isn't too far behind here, is basically just has to get through the character join and key item cutscene at Baron Castle. We'll be making that same Odin check and discovering that D-Mist is there, and then we'll, I've assumedly, be heading underground as well.
And he does have an additional check under his belt. He did do the Fabul Defense, which I don't believe Zilch has done. I'd be interested to see if Zilch is thinking, let me do Sheila 1 first before I do my Fabul Defense. And we know as commentators that won't wind up costing him, because Poidrac did fade that Earth Crystal. So if progression is there, they're both missing out on it. And looks like that extra money is going to come right in handy, as Zilch was able to afford some hourglasses and a coffin, and we have a free fight here at the Leviathan spot.
Yeah, this is exactly what you're hoping for when you come down to Fey March early. You can get that key item check out of the way, and then you can also check the bosses. And if you get a free one, that's basically just you know, that's a bonus.
This fight is going to be all about whether or not board AI is kind and does not target attacks against the character that has the hourglass queued.
Well, there we go. Edge manages to get it off, so this is done deal for Zilch.
I believe he has one coffin. I'm not sure if he's interested in using that or if he's just gonna berserk up his edge and wait for him to work his way through that that HP total. And there he goes, answering my question by queuing up the coffin.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Coffin lets you life glitch pretty easily because the timing to use the item helps you out, and you make sure you get some extra EXP from this battle, which will help shorten your grind later. It's a smooth move by Zilch.
Yeah, it's going to be a great way to get some early levels, especially on his two mages that he's keeping up. You know, mages really get their value out of the levels that you get them. So anytime you can get a big jump start on levels when you get underground is a great thing to be able to do.
Yeah, we can see Edge still getting quite a lot of damage for the party levels so far. Not too shabby at all with over 2,000 hits.
And we see the very rare Berserked Rosa. He does have the Silent Staff for his Rosa, so he's getting the racial quadruple damage bonus applied. So his low-level White Mage is bonking the King of Summon spot for over 1,000 a hit.
We do get a tower key. That means both the Dwarf Castle and the tower are 2-for-1 checks at this point.
I don't hate to see it. It really does open up pretty much all of the underworld. Zilch knows he doesn't have to do any kind of cheeky Luca Cave check since he has located the D-Mist. So he can pretty much pick whatever spots in the underworld he wants to clear. And it looks like he might be trying Odin. He does have a Moon Veil, but I don't know that Moon Veil is going to save him from the Zentetsuken. Oh, he does also have Eddie. So here's a real cheeky strat he might be trying. If your character survives through the, I believe it's the third Odin special attack, then the next time that Odin raises his sword, he becomes vulnerable to instant death by any targeted lightning attack. So he's going to leave Eddie off screen for 3 of these Odin swords, and is going to have him come back into the field and try to time a Thor Rage to get the instant kill.
Yeah, Zilch is a big fan of timing-based strategies like this. One of the masters of Edward, actually, which is why we weren't surprised to see him keep Edward this long in the first place.
And just the package, unfortunately. But, you know, that is a key item. That's one step closer to 10. And it was nice to have, a runner really show off their knowledge level and skill level. But not a real juicy bit of progression that one of our other runners might have missed out on.
Yeah, that's actually good news for Poidrac because that would have been if you pass up Odin and fade it, and it had been something important. That could have cost the match for one of these players.
So it looks like Zilch is probably going to go from here to Fabul. He has that Sheila 1 check triggered, and he hasn't done the defensive Fabul yet, so it's 2 key item checks, a free heal.
Yeah, I don't dislike this. You do got to check your freebies when you can when you're in a match like this. It's just too risky to fade them.
Oh, we are now 1 item away from go mode as we find the adamant from Sheila 1.
Yeah, and in this flex that objective becomes we haven't been seeing it used as one of the 4 a lot in the tournament, but when you have a Cecil, it becomes kind of compelling because you can get that Excalibur out of it and the objective at the same time. It's pretty nice.
We do have a seed with the shop dwarf check, or with the job dwarf check.
And Poidrac showing us once again those Bacchus in the shop in Tamra as well, in case we are looking at Berserker strats. Now we see Zilch is actually, let's see here. He's attacked as Edward.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think he might be planning on eventually going back to using his Porum, but he might just be leaving her on the ground for now. And Poidrac, not having done that little bit of recon into the barren basement that Zilch has done, is walking all the way back to the bottom of Sealed Cave to get the bad news that Demist is in fact not hiding there.
Yeah, this is a position where Poidrac may feel behind and is kind of doing something unorthodox in order to perhaps gain an edge. Now, no one's done Dwarf Castle yet, so we don't know what this item is, but the fact that you can get it basically for free from Dwarf Castle makes this move basically the boss hunt, or if you think Dwarf Castle is going to be too tough. Zilch is going to find this stuff in the treasury that Poidrac has already found, so our players are starting to get to kind of item and key item check parity here, but their parties are completely different, so we'll have to see how they work through that for the final checks in the underground. So Sealed Cave is just a Bahamut summon, which is, I mean, it's not nothing, but it's not what Poidrac wanted to come all the way down here for.
No, and he also unfortunately does know he'll be able to get that out of the Warp Glitch he's going to do after completing the Dwarf Castle bosses right here.
Yeah, and as expected, once he sees the Octo Mammoth is just resetting out, going straight to Dwarf Castle. And we get a hooded figure in Dwarf Castle.
I do enjoy this spot because apparently Mylon is the only one of the 4 elemental fiends who knows how to dance. The other figures stay planted in place while Mylon does the actual formal dancing of the quartet.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but the game doesn't have the side or back sprites for the other elements because they never turn around in the game, so there's no way to make them dance. Chat is actually pointing out Poidrac doesn't actually have warp because he didn't take Rydia, so that's why he went and did that sealed cave check.
That's why you're always glad to have chat around to remind you when you've gotten something wrong. And we do see cabins. I'd be interested to know whether or not our runners are thinking more they'd like to steal a pack of sirens or they'd rather buy them at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it all depends on the money rounding. At this point, you've got underground access. You need only one more key item and a grind. Be feeling a lot of pressure to not do any treasure hunting that I don't have to do. So at this point, I would hope that I have enough money to buy them and not have to go steal. But if you don't have the money, then you really don't have another choice. And Zilch is now making the same check as Poidrac.
Yeah, I was going to say the only option you really have if you can't find the sirens or steal them is something that Zilch is actually very famous for, which is the very low level strats, where he would need a large stack of star veils and a large stack of the vampire item to be able to complete the Z fight with a very low level character.
Yeah, that strategy is quite time consuming because you have to sit through a lot of spell animations.
You also really do not have room for error because while it is nice being able to have, quick access to the Z fight, it does make execution really tough. One small mistake and your whole fight is tossed.
And unfortunately, just a rat tail, it looks like, from Dwarf Castle, so we don't have a way to turn that in. We have not found the hook yet, so right now that's going to sit there until it can maybe pay off later. Poidrac wasting no time taking the tower key. This is the only 2-for-1 spot still left, so I can't fault this play. This is definitely where you would go statistically for progression.
And yeah, and you can always save scum your way through the tower. Save at the bottom, save in the middle. If you don't like what's on the top, you can reset out to the middle, and then just have to walk down half of the tower instead of the full tower.
Yeah, I think we can expect Zilch will also go to tower after Dwarf Castle, and but Poidrac is going to show us what these items are first.
We do see a karate man at the top of the tower, which means this fight is going to go pretty fast due to an interesting glitch in the karate fight. All you have to do is wait for him to kick a second time and attack with one of your paladins. He'll say ouch and decide he doesn't feel like fighting anymore.
Yeah, this fight is originally in the Baron Inn and is scripted to go that way, kind of like the Dark Knight Cecil fight is scripted to end automatically if you don't attack him. It's interesting that they gave him HP in the first place in that spot, which helps us out because it means we don't have to kind of worry about reprogramming anything.
Just another tail, unfortunately, with no hook in sight. But you know, he is carrying around vessels and really to hear from them. And you've already got the other tail. You might as well keep it. No sense in resetting out of that.
Yeah, especially since you still have to do the cannon room and walk out to find that item. It doesn't save you enough time to drop it.
And it's Wyvern time.
Oof, one of the worst spots. Easiest boss spot in the game, but actually just lucks out and that Mega Nuke straight up misses Cecil.
I believe that bottom Cecil is wearing crystal armor. So that's not a spot with tremendously high attack, so you know it is theoretically possible to dodge all of those Mega Nuke rolls, but you tend to not see it too often.
Yeah, and the top Cecil actually tanked it as well and managed to live. So it's not often you see a Mega Nuke come off and your party actually lives. So now Zilch is just one fight behind Poidrac for our players to be basically 1-for-1 even in this match. It's quite close. We're already 50 minutes in. We're just looking for one more key item either way. And this is a nail biter for sure.
And this is where Zilch is being a little bit punished for not keeping a Cecil. He is going to have to fight this the fair way and actually make his way through the kind of large HP pool that is here at the top of tower. And we've got music potentially. Now, Poidrac hasn't checked the Baron basement yet, so he doesn't know what's down there. But as of right now, the two checks that are open are fan favorite music or the Tower of Zot. So we'll see. It looks like Poidrac is going to be the man of the people tonight.
Yeah, you love to see it. Cave Magnus is a check that is faded a lot of the time, but we can see Poidrac favoring that over the Odin spot.
I can't really blame him. I don't know that he has necessarily the levels you would want to be able to take on that spot. It is kind of tougher. He's already seen a lot of free fights out of the pool, so I can't really blame him for saying, you know what, I'll come back to that later.
Zilch similarly through the Wyvern fight in the cannon room, and we'll be catching up with Poidrac momentarily. We'll have to see where Zilch goes, because Zilch knows that the D-Mist is down at Odin, but has not challenged it yet. So we do get Calcabrina here. And this is a pretty easy fight for Poidrac at this point. And meanwhile, Zilch, as these Zelda 1 dungeon plays, gets through the tower and now has 10 key items. So if he wants to grind, he does have access to Sirens and could get his levels out of the way and just plow through the rest of the seed.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see what he chooses to do here. He flew away from the tower. He's gone back. So I think he hadn't checked the Tamra shop yet, so he wasn't sure if he'd be able to find Sirens there. It's obviously much quicker to buy a bunch of them than steal a bunch of them. But he does look like he's more interested in going back and stealing a big bundle of them.
And oof, the Cave Magnus was just a poison axe, so a complete strikeout. We are now down to just the Tower of Zot, which Poidrac is checking now, and that Odin check. We're running out of spots for progression to beat.
Yeah, and importantly, that Odin check is actually 2 checks, since we do know it's Threemus down there. But this really has funneled our runners into a very narrow possible progression.
Yeah, and if the Earth Crystal is progression here, that's going to make whoever finds it feel very far behind, because it's got to go through your head how long you've had that Earth Crystal, and if your opponent decided to check it, it's bad news for you. Now, luckily, neither runner did check it early, but they don't know that, so it's going to make them very worried if there's something good here.
That is one of those kind of anxiety-inducing moments if you circle back to a check you had faded and find that piece of progression. It really can kind of get your nerves going. And speaking of nerves, looks like we have the Alt Gauntlet here, which should be, a relatively easy spot, given the party that we've got is now going to be a slog of 5 fights.
Yeah, I gotta say, out of all the features that have been added over the course of Free Enterprise since I've been involved in the community, the Alt Gauntlet is one of my favorites, just because it gives you something fresh and new for a fight that would normally be extremely boring. So at least if you have to sit through it, it's different enemies, depending on the location.
Yes, it is nice going back and seeing enemies I haven't seen since I was around 8 years old and playing my way through the game for the first time.
And now we do have, it looks like Zilch is going to do some level grinding here, going to scramble some eggs. We'll have to see if he wants to do all of his grinding here or only wants to get high enough to beat some of the bosses that he knows are in his way still.
We'll see. And it does look like he's leaving all of his party members alive. Not sure what the agility plan is, or if he's planning on using seed. I'd be interested to hear what his thoughts are on what he's doing with this party at this point. Oh, and as I say that, he's throwing a cursed ring on his Sid, so it looks like that's his plan for an anchor.
Yeah, Sid is not too shabby to use as an anchor because unlike a lot of the other potential anchor characters, he has a very high HP level, so he can actually survive big bangs, and if you're not going to use him for damage, he can at least throw items for you.
Does have the Dwarf Axe, which is -5 agility, and the Cursed Ring, which is -15. You can get Sid to a very high level and still leave him with exactly 1 agility.
Oh, the joys of being a non-final party character in Final Fantasy IV.
Yes, at level 51, Sid will have 21 agility and somewhere between 3,924 HP, 4,300 and something. So, it's a great way to have your agility anchor instead of being that's not really going to offer you too much. You can have a perfectly viable chemist sit in the middle and stay up while still having perfect agility for your Z fight.
And we find a cane and a palom here in the tower. I don't expect we'll be taking either one of them unless Poidrac is still looking for a more perfect anchor. But yeah, drops the cane, drops the palom, and we see the boss here. Which happens to be the Dark Elf. This will be a quick fight. The second half of the fight, you can do all sorts of stuff to it because it doesn't have the boss flag, but Poidrac is not really even going to need to use any of those tricks. It's just going to melt through it pretty quickly. And we do see Zilch challenging this D-Mist. Only did a few eggs, so we'll need more grinding later, but for right now, is just wanting to get enough power to make sure he gets through this fight.
And Poidrac does get through that Dark Elf fight. This could be very close depending on whether or not he gets the progression that he needs out of this.
Yeah, our runners are showing us two different, basically the only two spots left, so whichever one ends up being right is going to instantly be ahead.
Just a lightsaber for Poidrac's troubles. So, unfortunately, he made two longer checks, and all he got out of it was two weapons.
Yeah, that coin flip is going to put Zilch squarely in the lead.
It is nice seeing our runners converge here because it means we're pretty much back to full parity in terms of checks and progression. So I'm going to be really interested to see how our runners tackle going forward.
And we can see their party levels are not too different from each other. We are seeing, mid-thousands HP levels on Poidrac's side. Same for Zilch, except with the exception of Sid, of course. So they're not too... Even though Zilch did a little bit of grinding, the extra checks Poidrac have done has put his party at basically the same amount of levels. Oh wow, just an apple from the actual Odin spot, which means the progression is actually thanks to D-Mist. So, thank you, D-Mist. Oof, we see the pan from Rydia's mom, so that's going to be another dive into Sylph Cave. Let's go through the longest this progression could possibly be. Yeah, Zilch wasting no time heading immediately underground for that, and I can expect Poidrac will do the same. You hate to see a double dive of Sylph Cave because it's one of the longer dungeons to go down, and you have to heal afterwards thanks to the damage tiles. But you know, sometimes you got to do what you got to do, and it would have been nice if our runners had known and they could have done both at the same time. But you can't leave it on the table, like I said earlier. Check your freebies, especially when you're down to only a few key item treks, and some of them have bosses and others don't. There we go, a Darkness Crystal from the Sylphs. I'm interested to see if Zilch even checks Sheila 2, or if he goes directly to the moon. There are a lot of moon bosses, and any of them could have the final key item necessary. Remember, we're down to one key item needed for either the Objective 3, Cure the Fever with the Sand Ruby, or the Zilch just needs the Legend Sword in order to complete Objective 1. So we're down to the 7 key item checks on the moon, along with Sheila 2, which that means the odds are 2 out of 7 for any of these checks to have something that will send Zilch into go mode. Oh, just the siren from Sheila 2, so Zilch will be heading to the moon to hunt down these last key items. You know, chat, I hear there's always value in Cave Bahamut. Who agrees?
It actually looks like Zilch is going to stay on Earth for a little bit, which I can't blame him for doing, given that, you know, you have the Twin Harp, you have the Earth. Not necessarily quick checks, but they're right next to each other. So, you know, before you go and start tackling with moon bosses, might as well just fly right on over here and see if you can't get progression that way.
Yeah, this is a shame because we know these spots are strikeouts, and Zilch will now be basically giving up the lead here. But when you're playing, you don't know, and if you fade any of these and your opponent doesn't, it's just too much of a risk that they'll get ahead. Now we do see Poidrac is about to find that Darkness Crystal as well, and we'll go and probably do the Sheila 2, get that Siren. But the difference between Poidrac and Zilch here is that Poidrac has already done the Tower of Zot and has already done Cave Magnus. So Zilch is actually, without knowing it, is actually scrambling to recover ground that Poidrac has already covered. If you're Poidrac here and you see this darkness, you may be extremely worried because he's got to know there was a potential his opponent didn't do those 2 key item checks that he did. He's getting lucky because Zilch is retracing the steps, but anytime you've gone through rabbit holes that didn't pan out, you start to think you're very behind, especially in this tournament where so many of these matches have been decided by 5 minutes or less.
And they've really been right on top of each other this whole race, kind of crisscrossing in terms of who's faded which checks. And it really has kind of followed them all right to the same spot. It looks like Poidrac is going to have a head start on the moon checks.
And we'll be getting a music redo here, so I will back away for a minute. And Zilch with just Bahammating the dolls. You hate to see it. Hope you're not doll fans here. Yeah, and we see Poidrac will be the first one to make it to the moon. Zilch resetting out of Magnus. We'll see if he does Zot or just goes to the moon.
And it looks like he is going to do Zot, which we have the foresight of knowing.
Chat, do you call this this device that we're boarding the big whale or the lunar whale? We've got Mega Whale, Space Cockroach, the Rotten Shrimp, the Flying Shrimp. It doesn't. It never looked like a whale to me when I was a kid, but now I can see the tail. Poidrac doing the shop check. You really can't pass it up at this point. The Moon Shop has the potential to have the best items in the game. And we haven't found everything that our players would be looking for. Gonna see what we do with the character here. If Poidrac feels good about the agility situation, then he's probably gonna ditch this character. Meanwhile, Zilch has found that gauntlet, which unfortunately we know is 100% wasted time. And that is going to be another... let's see, who was that? Oh, yeah, no, a twin we're not taking, basically. While we're here and we have Zilch going through the gauntlet and Poidrac going down into the lunar subterrane, I did want to remind everybody that our restream today is brought to you by Ground Flyer. And the tracker today is Pancras, who's doing the objective and the item tracking, our kind of silent partners here for this broadcast. And you are watching the Magma route phase of the Highway to the Threemus Zone tournament. This week is the last week, and then we will be having the play-in matches before the brackets. So things are really heating up. We are in. Everybody who plays this week is either playing to get in the higher qualifier, the lower qualifier, or getting knocked out. And if you need more information about the Highway to the Threemus Zone tournament, definitely get on the Discord. There are links in the channels that can get you to both how the tournament works, how it's organized, and what the standings are for all of our players so far. We have over 100 players, and we've restreamed over 130 matches. But even with all of those restreams, there are plenty of matches that have not been able to be restreamed. And the community has been pretty active in watching those races offline and voice chatting about them as they happen. So we do have Zilch continuing to go through this fruitless rabbit hole. Now Poidrac is deciding he wants to do the rest of his level grind right here on Gold Dragons on his way down to face whatever bosses he needs to go. Most players go bottom up just because the ribbon room, which has 2 key item checks, is a little juicy. But some players go top down. It looks like in this case Poidrac is going to go bottom up. Now this is where your strategy comes into play a lot as well, because you don't know, do you want to grind all the way to your Zeromus levels? If you think the first or second boss you fight will have the item you need, then that's a good decision. But if you think you're going to have to full clear the moon, that's a lot of experience that you're going to get from those bosses anyways. So you can shorten your grind a little bit and count on the experience from the bosses. The problem Poidrac is running into is we only need one key item. So the idea that he would have to full clear the moon is pretty low at this point. So I think we'll see a grind to almost Z levels, but not quite from Poidrac here. Yeah, Restreamer Groundflyer pointing out in chat, we have not seen Golbez yet, so Moon Golbez is going to be a pretty long slog if we find him. Yeah, there goes Poidrac getting the curse ring on his Anchor Cecil, and then going to be setting up to just plow through these bosses, see where these items are. Yeah, and as expected, straight to the Ribbon Room with only one key item needed. This 2-for-1 is definitely the best boss spot to face first, because you could get it. You have a much higher chance of getting it. I do not believe Poidrac's party will be falling into the deep ravine today. It's looking pretty well set up for this Mylon Z fight. Meanwhile, Zilch has gotten the incredibly rude news that none of the Earth checks have panned out and is going to go raise the whale himself. I can imagine we'll be heading straight to the Ribbon Room as well. And we can see Poidrac did not buy the lightsaber, which Zilch saw in the Baron Weapons shop, as a defense sword on the main Cecil, and I believe the Poison Axe is on the Anchor Cecil. I'm also surprised that both players have kept Edward this late in the game. It's pretty much past the time where Edward strats would be a good move. So it's weird, especially since Poidrac had grinding left to do, that he did not take... I know he's going to use Berserk strats, but a mage is better than Eddie in that case, at least. Chat is reminding me that Poidrac does have a Drain Sword on the Anchor Cecil instead, which of course will hurt you in the case of undead enemies like Mylon Z. Ooh, we get a ribbon and a hook. This opens up a lot of possibilities. Does Poidrac exit and check the hook immediately and gamble that Rat Tail carries one of the items he needs, or does he continue to check these bosses? This could actually be a critical choice. Yeah, we see Poidrac exiting, and he did save here, so I can imagine if the Rat Tail doesn't pay off, he's going to reset, so he'll be up there already to check the rest of these Moon boss spots. Meanwhile, Zilch getting the inventory all cleaned up, everything on his characters. Did take Kane, interesting. Did change the party again. We can see these players have basically 100% different parties. I think they only share Rosa right now. So it's just goes to show you, you can clear seeds in very similar times, even if your strategies are quite different. Ouch, it looks like Poidrac did not actually get the hovercraft up, so is going to have to sit through this character gain cutscene. Oh my goodness, it was Tella the whole time! You hate to see it. That old man will be getting ditched at this point, but at the beginning of the game, he would have been extremely useful. At this point, Tella's pretty much only good to be an agility anchor. He wouldn't be surviving any big bangs, so... Sorry, Tella. Now, if this rat tail doesn't pan off, this is Zilch's opportunity to catch up. So, let's see, turning in the pink first. We'll see what it is. An Avenger Sword, so that's a payoff. Okay. Okay. And the rat tail just ends up being another Avenger Sword? Wow, this guy is really hoarding them in the Adamant Cave. So now Poidrac has to think, are those adamants worth having to go all the way back up to the moon? And it looks like he thinks they are, because he's not resetting. Imagine walking all the way down the lunar subterrane again. Well, or he could be gambling that it's the top spot and we going top down this time. And neither of our runners check Cave Bahamut as well, which is understandable. It's only one check versus the lunar subterrane 6. But Poidrac is making a gamble here and now going to show us which boss is in Cave Bahamut. Okay, so everybody's favorite. Is there value in Cave Bahamut? And looks like for this Golbez fight in Cave Bahamut, I'm rejoined by my co-commentator Alicel, who's stepping in due to some tech issues. Welcome, Alicel, for the most exciting part of this match.
Hello, hello.
So Poidrac's got Golbez at Cave Bahamut here. If you're Poidrac, do you take this gamble or do you reset back to the lunar subterrane?
Well, since he's already set up with all of his characters in mini status, I think it wouldn't be too bad. The magic power is a little high here, but having that where you can go ahead get Star Veils up, I think it's definitely something you could do.
Yeah, and with 2 key items left and only 6 checks left that Poidrac hasn't done, actually 5, the chances are actually pretty good that this gamble can pay off in one way or the other.
But it looks like Poidrac not wanting to mess with cave value today. Looks like he's going to head back down to the lunar subterrane.
And this is where this is still anyone's game, because Zilch has gone down to the bottom, and Poidrac has the chance to do the opposite here and go top down. He did already check the ribbon room to get the hook, but otherwise there's a lot of spots left down here that we haven't seen.
And looks like he is going to go ahead and do top down. We'll see if he gets rewarded with this gamble.
Meanwhile, Zilch got through actually an Ogopogo fight on the other side quite handily. You hate to see Ogopogo on the moon. You definitely would like to have seen him earlier in the seed, but not challenge for Zilch. Gets through it, and we find Leviathan in the other spot as well. So all of the wavy, wacky, wiggly serpents are up here.
So many noodles on the moon. And chat point, he actually reset out of that Ogopogo fight.
Yeah, Zilch's Rosa has pretty good levels on her, so she should be able to keep the party pretty high up, but it's still a challenging fight either way, and you have to be careful. If you miss any heal, or if you just have bad timing, the wrong character gets hit by the physical attacks, it can be a problem.
And since I'm stepping in a little bit late, what spots are left on the moon for our runners?
So we're still looking at the final altar in the Crystal Palace section, and we have not seen the Wyvern altar yet. And you can see on Poidrac's screen, the Ice 2s on his Crystal Armor Cecil were hitting for almost nothing. You hardly ever see a Crystal Armor because it stops you from being berserked, which we like to do to our physical attackers. But in the case of where you have a Cecil for a lot of the seed, it could really help you get through the earlier fights. Meanwhile, Poidrac does find a spoon as well, which is unfortunate because I believe Poidrac no longer has Edward.
And Zilch finding the Sand Ruby. That is go mode.
Oof, and that's some more unfortunate luck for Poidrac, because if Poidrac had done this the next door over after doing that ribbon check, he would already have that probably about 7 minutes ago. So, oof.
Now we'll see if he goes to the Wyvern altar, which may have that legend sword, or if he does go ahead and do that white spear.
Yeah, he basically, if he goes and checks the Wyvern altar, then he's got a 50-50 shot for it to be the Legend Sword. So not too shabby of odds, considering everything we know.
And Zilch getting trolled by the NPCs there, but does manage to make it through that boss.
And with that, Zilch has gotten Objective 3 complete and has his crystal. And I believe we'll be heading to Zeromus ASAP.
That hurts me, Zilch. That hurts me.
You hate to see it, but Sid's too good of an agility anchor. I think he's pretty optimal here. So Zilch making the sacrifice and getting rid of one of his leveled party members in order to make sure the Z fight goes exactly on script.
And Poidrac getting a bit of a break here with Rubicant. Yeah, the magic spot in this, the magic in this spot is terrible, very bad magic.
Yeah, the developers put Mega Nuke in the game with super crazy spell power, but then they made the spots that Wyvern would be at have low magic power so that it wouldn't automatically kill your party if you were a little bit lower of level. Not sure why they didn't just lower the spell power of the move, but that's what they decided. So this spot, which is known for heavy magic damage, actually has pretty crappy magic power.
But in chat, I see a bunch of Z flags coming out, and I believe we have a very important question we like to ask around this time.
Yeah, it goes like, I kind of forget, like, whose posterior are we going to beat up, or something like that?
I think that sounds about right. But
just kidding, chat. It's whose butt are we gonna kick tonight?
And for those who are fairly new to the community, we have 450 plus different sprites for Zeromus. They don't really change his script, but they at least jazz him up a little bit.
Now, the only bonus to Poidrac here is if this is the Legend Sword, then at least he'll gain an Excalibur. for his Cecil, which Zilch does not have. And it's unfortunately, this is a strikeout as well. So we know now that the Legend Sword is hidden behind that Golbez in Cave Bahamut, which means if Poidrac had been able to get through that fight, he would also be in the Z fight right now. Yeah, it's just some heartbreaking luck here for Poidrac.
But it looks like he is going to continue down. Hopefully going to take on that Ogopogo next.
Yeah, and we see Zilch's party. Rosa is the only one to be worried about on the HP front as far as like a high roll big bang, but is in very good shape for this Z fight. So I'm going to think that Zilch is going to get through this pretty well.
And Zilch is well versed in nerfing those big bangs.
Oh, the infamous War Mechas. For those who have never seen this, this is an enemy from the first Final Fantasy game that can appear in the final dungeon. It's kind of like a super boss, but there's no way to avoid it. If you get unlucky, you just it ends your time.
I don't know that I've ever seen this one. What a cute little butt.
And if I'm not mistaken, I believe this version of it comes from one of the ports later. It's not the original War Mech graphic, but Scala Kitty may be around to tell us where she found this sprite.
And it looks like it was one of the original board sprites. But we see Poidrac taking out his Ogopogo and will be getting his Sand Ruby.
Yeah, being able to be in go mode when your opponent has just entered the Z fight is pretty great timing for a race. An hour and 30 minutes in at this level, and Poidrac's only a few minutes behind, even with all of the extra checking that he did. It's pretty astounding.
And Zeromus isn't a free fight by any stretch of the imagination, so this isn't over until we see that crack boom.
Yeah, and at this point, if you're Poidrac, you got to be nervous. You know you've done a whole bunch of checks that didn't pan out. Even worse, if your opponent didn't do the Twin Harp and Earth Crystal checks, which Zilch did, so that's lucky, but Poidrac doesn't know that and has to think, oh, I could be very far behind. But then again, he hasn't seen a dot done yet, so maybe he's thinking, oh, I did well.
Well, both Poidrac and Zilch are excellent players. They both made it to the round of 32 in the Football Gauntlet. So I'm sure neither one of them is feeling sure of themselves quite yet.
Yeah, that's the thing. When we're at this stage of the tournament, all of your opponents, because of the way we've done the matchups, are threats. There's no matchup where you can be safe in this tournament now. It's you're pretty much have to go all in every match.
But Poidrac now has his crystal and is heading straight over to Troya to head into his Zeromus fight.
There we go. We see the good hits. Sid's not doing much damage, but Edge is doing work, as is Kane. So Zilch should be through, is in the second phase of the fight already, and we should be seeing rocks here shortly. Yeah, anytime you can be in the Zeromus fight while your opponent is still fighting it, you can be proud of that performance for sure.
And we do see rocks on Zilch's side.
Yeah, that means we are in the last phase of the fight. Only a few more hits to go.
And I believe that is GG.
Yeah, we like to say waiting for the flash, but if you can actually turn flashing lights off in the options for this randomizer, so sometimes we have to rely on the sound effect and the crumble. But GG's to Zilch with a time of 1 hour, 32 minutes, and 59 seconds. And we will see if we can get Zilch in here for an interview here shortly. And we are now joined by Zilch. Zilch, GG's on the win. How do you feel about this seed?
Felt pretty good. Well, during the seed, it didn't feel great. When you full clear the Earth and you still don't have your go mode, after doing Twin Harp and Zot, you just feel really behind because both of those paid out with nothing. But I had to hope Poidrac did the same thing and then head to the moon, which was definitely not haunted. But I felt like I played it pretty well, all things considered, regardless of having to full clear the Earth.
Now, you had some pretty stylish boss kills in this run, especially the chat was very impressed with the Odin kill. Can you talk to how much do you practice this type of strategy?
I haven't done that in a while, but I kind of just remembered you get the blink up, battle speed 2, unhide after the Odin cast, the second Odin cast. Odin will swing and you can get a Thor Rage and he'll just die. So it's been a while since I did it, but it's usually pretty consistent. So I figured as long as he didn't kill Edwy before the Silk Web and Blink got off, I was fine.
And was that one of the reasons why you held on to Edward for so long in the seed?
Yeah, there's that. In case the spoon came, I'm always happy using Eddie with spoons. And then in case it was a jet seed, it's nice to have Eddie in case you really need to get to Zeromus right away and you don't have the HP level to do low level strats. So
yeah, we saw you cruising the chops, and I saw you found all the items you would have needed, but you didn't want to commit your money to them until you knew you needed them. So I see you didn't buy any, but you did find them all.
Yeah, I didn't find any vampires, which would have been nice to speed up a low level fight. But again, who knew the Sand Ruby's hiding on the moon? So not this time.
Well, and then there at the end, you throw away that Rydia. You hurt me.
I carried her for most of the seed. She wasn't really going to do anything without Nuke in the fight. I thought about just throwing a random Bahamut at Zeromus, but in the end, I had to let her go.
Yeah, throwing summons at Zeromus, not always a good idea.
Yeah. But, I mean, she carried me through the rest of the seed. No, carried is a strong word. That was mainly edge, but she helped a lot throughout the rest of the seed.
But did you have any more?
Shine a little bit.
Len, did you have any other thoughts on this seed?
No, I think that's all I remember at this point. Now that I'm done being nervous, or not nervous, nervous, I guess. Yes, Poidrac's a really good runner, and even though in his last interview he claimed he doesn't win a lot on the big stage, I don't believe him. So, very stressful going into this one, knowing that there's a big difference in odds of making the play-ins or the tables if you win or lose this match.
Yeah, I can't let you go without asking. This does put you at 3-0 now, meaning you're going to be in the upper play-in match where 3 of the 5 players will be making it into the brackets. How do you feel about your chances in that match, knowing the opponents that have already made it into it?
I feel much better about that match than this one, because this one only one person advances. That one you got 3 people advance. So from that perspective, And again, Poidrac's just as good as all the other people that have already made it in and are going to make it in. So just from that perspective, I feel really good about being able to play that match, which is not a 1v1. And then maybe I'll finally get to play some table flags.
Yep, you don't have a whole lot of time to practice, unfortunately, but hopefully you can get some in and start off the table strong.
Hopefully.
Cool, and looks like while we were interviewing, Poidrac did finish the fight with the fan favorite Quint Berserker. So he is through as well, and we'll see if we can get him in to interview as well before we send you on.
And as Chad has pointed out, that Legend Sword was behind the Ogopogo altar.
Did we ever see the boss there?
Yeah, I don't believe we did.
Yeah, secret is I came in about 3/4 of the way through, so I'm not sure.
All right, well, I want to say thanks for the comms, guys. Thanks for restreaming Groundfire and tracking Pancrats. As always, fun tournament, and appreciate all the work everyone's doing.
Thank you so much. It was great talking to you.
All right, thanks.
And that was Zilch, our first place finisher tonight. And we'll see if we can't get Poidrac in for an interview.
And it looks like we are, in fact, joined by Poidrac. Poidrac, GG's on the performance, only a couple of minutes behind. How were you feeling once you did the Earth Crystal and Twin Harp and didn't get a payout on those?
Sort of standard procedure, actually. I went in there just trying the numbers. It's a good loop to go through. Twin Harp into Earth, into if you've got Baron as well, which I did have for the Odin Throne. It's a good little loop that you can do. Poison Axe into whatever the Tower of Zot had, I can't even remember that. But then the payout at the end, going through that loop to get that Mist Dragon. Even though I don't think that really, yes, it gave the pan, didn't it? So yeah, in the end it did lead to something. It was just, it's always a long check. You're always apprehensive doing it, but since it was one of my final checks to do, I wasn't really too worried about it. I knew there had to be something coming out of it in terms of progression, unless it was behind that Odin, and I just wasn't wanting to go there.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, Zilch did also do that check, although he did it in a different order than you, so at least it wasn't a waste of time, because you both kind of had to sync that.
Yeah, I know exactly where I lost that race, and it was going back down for the rat and pinktail check. Wonderful items, being 2 Avengers. My mistake was keeping them and not resetting back to the moon immediately. I know I was thinking, yes, I should have done that immediately after I did it, but I thought, I'm probably behind anyway, because it's Zilch I'm up against. You don't go into a race against Zilch thinking you're going to be ahead, even at best. And the way I'd sort of been going through that, I thought, I'm a little bit behind. I might as well keep them and see if I can leverage going top down on the moon. If he's near to me and he goes bottom up and continues, and it's in the Bahamut spot or the Peldim spot, I might still be in with that chance. Unfortunately, both were down at the bottom.
Yeah, the gambles just didn't pay off for you there, and at least you did get those Avengers sword, but you can kind of say they baited you a bit.
Yeah, oh, yeah. They baited me super hard, and it's just, this game is completely about decision making in what you do, where you go, and what you do with the sort of items that are given to you. I chose one route, Zilch chose the other. Zilch chose correctly this time. On another day, I might have chose correctly. No matter what, if just been 5 minutes in, the Doctor came as I was going up into Threemus. I am nowhere near disappointed in this race. I thought and I'm going to likely watch it back later, and I'm probably going to see a very close race, a very competitive race, and I am proud of that, just in that.
Well, speaking of competition, you are in the lower playoff match. How are you feeling about your chances there?
Not very good, actually. Strangely enough. The first one, having 3 out of 5, is I might have felt a little bit more confident in that one, and although the races in there are extremely good, but when it comes to the what's going to be 3 out of 11, and it's either 3 out of 10 or 3 out of 11 if my counting is correctly. That's going to be a little bit more dangerous in terms of things. I'm not feeling super confident. I'm just going to go into the race and do my best, and if it puts me through to the table, it does that.
Well,
all we can ask for is that everyone play their best, and as long as you're having fun, that's the most important thing.
Yeah, I always have fun. I'm doing free enterprise. I've been going for 2 years now. I think I've just got past my sort of anniversary for actually joining up for the first time 2 years ago, and I've enjoyed it fully ever since I started. It's just grown since then, and this tournament has been great. To be honest, I wasn't too sure about the flags going into it. I was one of the people on the edge, but at least the sort of group flags have grown on me a little bit. I'm liking them a little bit more. Or when it gets to the table flags, I actually feel if I get there, I'm actually going to improve, because I do better with less, in my opinion. So I'm hoping that if I get there, brilliant. I should do okay, but I've got to get there first.
Well, we'll definitely be rooting for you in that play-in match, and hoping to see you in tables.
Yeah, and thank you for everyone doing the restream today. Thank you everyone for joining in and watching the races so far. I'm going to go and lay down. It's 2:00 in the morning because British time. No one. Why I do this, I don't know, but British time. I'm up for you guys. I'm up for entertaining you guys. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thanks. You have a good night.
And that's going to wrap it for us at this match. Were Restreamer Groundflyer, Tracker X Pancraz. My first commentator was Born Soren, and double thank you to Alicel for helping us and stepping in here at the end of the match to help out with that.
Well, and thank you to you. We greatly appreciate it, LMM.
And with that, y'all, I believe we will be sending you to the race against Revenant versus Smapety, which is already in progress over on Randomania 2. So stay tuned for more Highway to the Threemus Zone action.
And remember, do not spoil the race for those who may want to watch it later. But y'all have a wonderful night.